Good morning. Hello, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Salam sejahtera. My name is Zhang Shouwang. I specialize in curriculum instruction, and my supervisor is Dr. and Associate Professor Sanita Mohd Yusuf. I'm so glad to be here to introduce my articles entitled The Fluence of Situational English Teaching Method on Senior High School Students' English Speaking Learning Efficiency. Firstly, I will introduce the abstract, the main idea of the abstract. The objective of the studies was to explore the influence the situational English teaching method on senior high school students' English speaking. The study was conducted using the questionnaire in Yinhua Senior High School in Tianjin, China. A total of the 60 senior high school students participated in the study actively. The students answered the questions after attending the English classes in which the situational English teaching method was being implemented. And then a view collected data, and all the data were analyzed using SPSS version 27 to evaluate and measure the level of effectiveness in learning English speaking. The descriptive statistics show that the situational English teaching method had a very positive impact on English language learning. And based on the finding of the study, I think the excellent pedagogical recommendations was made in order to develop better teaching plans and arrangement for English speaking classes so that senior high school students can speak English more confidently. And then, as for my article introduction, I think the objectives of the studies is to explore and evaluate the fluence of the situational English teaching method on senior high school students' English speaking learning efficiency. If you ask me what is the content, the content of the new curriculum is increasingly and gradually linked to social life, and the practical and oral communication function of English speaking as a language subject facilitates greatly teachers to create contacts for students to actively participate in the classroom, especially in English language teaching. It contributes to the improvement of the students' ability to use the spoken English and to the qualities of the English teachers teaching in secondary school. A survey on the use of contextual teaching in secondary school English teaching will help better understand the current situation of implementation of the teaching method, situational English teaching method. First one, in order to understand the use of the contextual teaching in senior high school classroom and to examine the effectiveness and efficiencies of contextual teaching. To sum up, learning spoken English is not only a very important means of acquiring knowledge, but also of gaining different kind of experience, and it's a very significant means of developing critical and developmental thinking, especially critical thinking for the students from senior high school. Therefore, students' oral English learning should meet all the general requirements. Learning in meaningful, authentic, situational context, which is very, very important for students' English acquisition, for English thinking, cultivation, for English thinking development. I think there's a urgent need to further investigate the contextual approach to teaching English as a foreign language, namely situational teaching method. Literature review. The theoretical foundation. According to the RAN, based on the theory of contextual cognitive learning, the teachers should follow four major principles when creating English teaching contexts. The situational creates a vivid and concrete with a very certain emotional color. It will come through students' emotional experience. Students to understand the material and promote the overall harmonious development of students' mental functions. So, one of the theoretical foundations of the contextual teaching method is psychological, as you can see. And let's talk about the language acquisition theory. Language acquisition is the learning and development of the person's language. Language acquisition theory is a combination of Chomsky's language acquisition apparatus and Krenshen's secondary acquisition hypothesis. Okay, and the language acquisition theory. Language acquisition is the learning and development of the person's language. So, and language, acquisition theory is a combination of the Chomsky's language and acquisition apparatus and Krenshen secondary acquisitions apparatus, as I have mentioned above. And on the other hand, chemicists argue there is a very inherited language acquisition device in the human brain, and therefore it has abilities to acquire language naturally. And from what I have listed above, I think the oral method has been applied and widely used since the 1950s. And the characters summarized by Lichard and Rogers as follows. From 1, spoken language precedes written form. The target language is used to classroom instructions. New language points and grammar items are taught and practiced in specific contexts. Vocabulary selections should follow the rules of the basic and useful vocabulary. Grammar should be taught from simple forms to complex forms, and reading and writing can be introduced after vocabulary and grammar are built up. Constructive learning theory. Constructivism holds that there's not enough for teachers to talk and instruct before the classroom in order for students to acquire knowledge. Learners are builders and creators, meaning the knowledge they acquire knowledge by introducing critical models into hands-on teaching and learning activities, right? And there are 4 theoretical foundations. New language pointed grammar items are taught and practical by specific contexts. And vocabulary selection. Grammar should be taught from simple form, and reading and writings can be introduced out of vocabulary grammar. That I have, mentioned above. Sample population and sample technique. The experimental subjects of the experiment was the students in Senior 3, Class 2 of Yinghua Senior High School. The experiment class was selected according to the significant differences in the, pretest within almost the same levels of English proficiencies, and most of them have difficulty speaking English. From November to May, the situational English teaching method is used in the experimental class. Throughout the experiment, the students were not told in advance that they were participating in the experiment, so we could determine the validities of the experiment. And next one is research instrument. The following instruments were used in the experiment: text and questionnaire, and they are very important instruments to demonstrate the dramatical changes in students' attitudes towards spoken English and improvement of their English skills after the adoption of the situational English teaching method. Questionnaire items design. The original questionnaire was taken from John Lee 2018 study on the effectiveness of situational English teaching method in junior high school. And the questions in the questionnaire were developed based on the research question to answer the learning effective of the English language learning. The questionnaire included physical participation, the matching degree, immersion, perceptions, and learning outcomes. The 4 parts which are very, very important to prove, my situational English teaching method for senior high school students is valid and effective and perfect. And I use the Likert 5-point scale design. Okay, this scale was developed by the Likert Institute. The Likert scale, which has a very mental rating similar to leak and leak. Yeah. Okay, I have used the SPSS 27 analysis were used in the study that I have mentioned above. Therefore, the results of the analysis will be present below. And then I will use the independent sample t-test. Okay, from the t-test, as is shown from the t-test, the aim of the study was compared to the differences in participants' scores between the pre-test and post-test. Data were collected from the two samples, pre-test scores and post-test scores. The volume of each sample was 60. In the pre-test score sample, participant scores range from 60 to 83 within a mean score of the 68, 767 and a standard deviation of 5.515. In the post-test score samples, participant scores range from 75 to 98 with a mean score of the 84.733 and a standard deviation of 6.070. We also use the t-test to compare the differences between the pre-test and the post-test score. Based on the calculated result, we found a t-value of 96.578 with a p-value of less than 0.001, significance level less than 0.001, indicating a significant difference between the pre-test and the post-test scores. The result provides a very, very, very strong evidence to support our research hypothesis. Yeah, my situational English teaching method is valid and effective. Finally, findings and results. Okay, by interpreting the discrimination data from the questionnaire, when the English class with SETM, Situational English Teaching Method, students can have a better learning effectiveness and clock activity participation. In the meantime, when the English class with SETM, Situational English Teaching Method, students can have a very, very excellent performance and taken on moderate learning satisfaction. Discussion. Okay, yeah, actually, I center on the four discussion. One is the fluence of situational English teaching method and the learning effect of high school oral English courses. Two, the influence of situational English teaching method on senior high school students' engagement and immersions in English speaking courses. Three, the influence of the situational English teaching method on high school students' matching degree in English speaking courses. The last one is influence of the situational English teaching method on high school students' learning outcomes in English speaking courses. Okay. To sum up, the research has revealed the impact on the situational English teaching method application effectiveness in the speaking courses in senior high school. The situational English teaching method has a highly positive to the spoken English for senior high school students at Tianjin Yinhua Senior High School. As a result, it's very, very apparent that English teachers need to design English speaking lessons that take into account students' engagement, immersions, license fit, and outcomes in the context of the situated English teaching approach in order to make the approach more effective and efficiency, and thus to improve all the students' English speaking skills and English awareness of how to learn English. Terima kasih. Bye bye. Thank you very much. Thank you for your listening, everyone.